when love isn't the reason. Some people don't leave when love fades. They leave when responsibility appears. Not because they stopped caring, and not because nothing was real, but because something inside them quietly reached its limit. And that limit is not about feelings, it's about capacity. Capacity is the inner ability to hold pressure, to tolerate expectation, and to remain present when care turns into obligation. In the beginning, connection can feel effortless. Affection flows, attention feels natural, and presence seems generous. But when a relationship begins to ask for decisions, timelines, or consequences, a different system activates. What once felt light now feels heavy. What once felt chosen now feels demanded. For some people, this shift does not register as growth. It registers as threat. This video explores why some individuals don't disappear during conflict or boredom, but precisely when responsibility arrives, and how this understanding reframes sudden silence and loss. When everything changes, often a relationship feels stable right up until something requires action. Not emotion, not affection, but action. A future that must be defined, a consequence that cannot be postponed, a decision that asks for more than words. This is often the moment everything shifts. For example, some people disappear shortly after a serious conversation about marriage. Not during conflict, and not during uncertainty, but right after clarity appears. The wedding date is mentioned. Families become involved. Long-term plans begin to feel real. And suddenly, communication slows. Messages become shorter. Responses take longer. Then, without explanation, they stop. In other situations, the disappearance happens when one partner enters a period of crisis, a health issue, a financial setback, a moment when care must extend beyond comfort and become sustained responsibility. At first, support may still be present. Concern is expressed. Help is offered. But as the situation continues, something changes. What once felt manageable as temporary support begins to feel overwhelming as obligation. Presence becomes inconsistent, then distant. And sometimes, the shift occurs when the conversation turns to children. Not the abstract idea of having children, but the reality of time, stability, sacrifice, and permanence. For someone with limited emotional capacity, these moments do not feel like growth or deepening connection. They feel like loss of freedom. They feel like pressure closing in. This is often where disappearance begins, not from lack of feeling, but from reaching an internal limit. Why capacity is reached? Psychologically, this pattern is often linked to what is known as avoidant attachment. But that term alone does not explain enough. Labels describe patterns, but they do not explain how those patterns feel from the inside. So let's slow this down. For many avoidant individuals, the roots of this response begin early in life. They often grew up in environments where love was conditional, where emotional needs were minimized or ignored, where independence was demanded before it was developmentally appropriate, or where closeness came with control, criticism, or intrusion. In those environments, the child learned something quietly and repeatedly. Needing others was unsafe. Depending on someone came at a cost. Closeness eventually took something away. Over time, adaptation occurred. Emotional self-reliance became survival. Containment replaced expression. Distance became regulation. As adults, these individuals can appear calm, capable, and emotionally composed. They may even enjoy intimacy in low-pressure conditions. But when responsibility enters the relationship, the experience changes. For an avoidant nervous system, responsibility does not feel like building something together. It feels like a chain tightening. Not partnership, but loss of autonomy. Not commitment, but pressure. When expectations increase, their inner system does not register growth. It registers threat. Internally, the message is not "we're moving forward," but "I am being trapped." At this point, the body responds before the mind can reason. The nervous system enters a fight or flight state. Heart rate increases. Cognitive flexibility decreases. Urgency replaces reflection. But instead of fighting, many avoidant individuals flee. Disappearing is not a calculated or malicious decision. It is fear without language. Silence becomes a way to regulate overwhelming sensation. Distance becomes relief. From the outside, this looks confusing and cruel. From the inside, it feels necessary for survival. Capacity has been exited, and when capacity is exited, connection cannot be maintained, regardless of how real the feelings once were. Silence as survival. When capacity is exceeded, avoidance systems do not move toward conversation. They move toward shutdown. This is the moment silence begins, not as punishment and not as strategy, but as a form of self-protection. Explaining requires emotional presence, and emotional presence feels impossible when the nervous system is overwhelmed. Words demand regulation, reflection, and vulnerability. Silence demands nothing. For the avoidant mind, it is the fastest way to reduce internal pressure. There is no argument to manage, no emotions to contain, no expectations to negotiate. Distance becomes calming. Absence becomes relief. From the inside, silence feels stabilizing. From the outside, it feels devastating. To the person left behind, the lack of explanation creates confusion and panic. The mind searches for meaning. Questions repeat without answers. What changed? What went wrong? Why did everything disappear so suddenly? The nervous system interprets the silence as abandonment because connection ended without warning or repair. Meanwhile, the avoidant individual may experience the same silence as necessary. They may feel lighter, calmer, and less pressured, even while knowing that pain has been caused. This is the painful reality of this dynamic. Both experiences are real, but they are not shared. One person exits to regulate themselves. The other is left holding the emotional weight of the ending alone. Silence, in this context, is not the absence of feeling. It is the absence of capacity. And when silence becomes the exit, closure is denied, not because it is undeserved, but because it feels unreachable. The view from the other side. If you are the one who's left, this experience can be deeply destabilizing. Silence creates a vacuum, and the mind instinctively tries to fill it. You replay conversations. You examine every moment for mistakes. You wonder what you could have said differently, or what you should have been. But here is what matters most. It was not about your worth, your effort, or your capacity to love. It was about theirs. People with limited emotional capacity often reveal themselves not during moments of closeness, but during moments of expectation. They may avoid long-term planning, shut down when serious conversations arise, become distant as responsibility increases, or confuse emotional closeness with loss of control. These are not signs of cruelty or bad character. They are signs of limitation. And limitation cannot be repaired by love alone. You cannot love someone into readiness. You cannot provide safety to a nervous system that experiences commitment as threat. Understanding this does not remove the pain, but it allows the pain to be placed in the correct context. The core message: when someone disappears at the moment responsibility appears, they are not revealing how deeply they felt. They are revealing their capacity. And capacity matters more than intensity, more than chemistry, more than words spoken in moments of closeness. Relationships do not survive on emotion alone. They survive on what two people are able to hold, to tolerate, and to carry forward together. Understanding this does not make loss painless, but it makes it clearer. And clarity, over time, is what allows healing to begin.